Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy as it is for us on every last Thursday of the month. Happy webinar day. Happy end of July. Where has time gone? We're already feels like all the way through summer. And as I just looked up, it is Happy National Chili Dog Day. So for anybody who celebrates, Happy National Chili Dog Day. And welcome to this next episode of the Pixelmill webinar series. And today's offering of optimizing power virtual agents, bots, analytics, monitoring, governance, and compliance. As always, my name is Michael Wells. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Creo Spark and the Pixelmill webinar series, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to another edition of the famed, the long-running, the ever-popular Pixelmill webinar series. We're happy to have you guys here today. We have a great topic that we're going through today. In Power Virtual Agents. It's been a lot of fun myself learning about this topic, learning about how to use these PVA bots to the best of our abilities, and how it can help drive business and help you achieve a lot of things in your own little world, in your ecosystem of you and your cohorts. And we're excited to share that information with you guys today. We have a lot to get through, so I'm going to keep moving on. We got a lot of stuff we want to cover. There we go. There's the agenda. That's what I was waiting for. So we got a few things that we're going to be going through today. You can see it on the screen. We've got some introductions and some housekeeping that we'll go through in just a bit. We're also obviously going to talk through just what in the heck are Power Virtual Agents. We'll talk about some use cases and scenarios. We'll talk about the analytics and insight side, like what you can kind of figure out while using it. We'll talk about the compliance and governance side, of course. And as always, we save some time at the end for Q&A. So if you've got those questions, we want to hear them. We want to make sure we get those answered. That's what we're here for. Okay, jumping into some housekeeping really quick. We're moving right along. Questions, speaking of questions, if you have them, there is a questions tab for you to put your questions in. If you are on the desktop app, it's a little pop-out thing that says questions. If you're on the desktop browser, it is a little chat bubble with a question mark. Throw your questions on up in there. I will be following along. I'll make sure your questions get answered. If for some reason we're not able to get to your questions in the moment that they're asked, that is why we leave about 15 minutes at the end, some time at the end, to get through those questions and make sure we get them answered. So don't worry about it. We will get your questions answered, whether it's in the moment or a little down the road. We are going to have a handout at the end, so keep an eye out on the handouts tab for something for you guys to take away with you at the end of this. And then we always record these sessions. That recording and the recap and all that will be sent out by email next week. So in case you missed anything, want to replay anything, have a family movie night and watch this again, this is going to be ready for you next week. And then at the end, we're going to have a little bit of a survey that we'd like you guys to fill out. We are a culture of constant improvement here at the Pixelmill webinar series, and we want to make sure we're always presenting the best product possible. So if you wouldn't mind taking that survey at the end, we would appreciate that. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. So if you're new to the series, if you're new to who we are, what we do, all that stuff, we are the Pixelmill webinar series, brought to you by the fine folks at Creo Spark. Last year we went through, we got to join forces with that group, and now we are one big happy family doing a lot of stuff here. But we are still the same Microsoft 365 implementation experts, as you see. We still got that same passion for technology. We're still going for that pursuit of the ideal digital employee experience. All the same stuff with a much bigger group. We're having so much fun. We're still in Davis, California. We've now got headquarters in Toronto as well. We are all across North America and really all across the world, still creating that Microsoft magic, as I like to call it. Just we've got more things to offer, got more people to do it with, and we're still having the same kind of fun. That's a little bit about us. Yeah, so again, if this is your first time with us or your 29th and a half time with us, we appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for being here. That's just a little bit about us. Go to the next slide, please. Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, so we like to kick these off with a little poll. We like to get an idea of what our attendees are looking to get out of today. Just kind of see where you're at heading into this. Let me get this poll launched here. You're going to see a little pop up on your screen if you wouldn't mind answering it for us. What experience have you had with Power Virtual Agents? Is it no experience? Maybe you've interacted with them before. Maybe your company has them, but you didn't build it. Maybe you're exploring building one, or maybe you are the one who built it and it's in active use. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know where you're at. I can acknowledge I'm still pretty new to PVAs. But they are a lot of fun. There's definitely a lot of value you can get out of them, and it's been a lot of fun to learn about them. So yeah, I just want to get an idea of where everybody's at. I appreciate. I'm seeing the votes coming in. Yep. Very, very interesting. Can't wait to share that and talk about that. That'll be very exciting. I'll give you guys about 10, 15 more seconds. Get your votes in there. Again, appreciate everybody who's throwing their votes up as we speak. Excuse me. Yeah, looking great, looking great. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this one on down, and I will share the results with you guys. Don't worry, let me just get that up there. So we have an even split of 50% of you saying no experience and 50% saying you've explored building one. Very
Perfect.
interesting. It's not very often that we get a lot of goose eggs on our polls, but very, very interesting to see all that. That's great. Thank you guys for that. All right. Well, with that, let's move on to the main part of the session. Let's move on to the main person, really, that you're going to want to be hearing from today. You see him on either my left or my right, depending on how you see it on the screen. He's a very familiar face to our webinar series, probably the longest running presenter for this series, since we basically made him do it like 3 years in a row. I kid. He is the Chief Product Officer here at Credo Spark. He is a Microsoft Regional Director, a Microsoft MVP, a Microsoft 365 apps, and also part of the Microsoft 365 apps and services. Part of that's where his MVP is from. That's what I meant to say. Part of the PMP team. He does all kinds of stuff in the community. He is the one. He is the only. He is Eric Overfield. Eric, how you doing today, boss?
Excellent. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the nice intro. So I'm
Glad
excited
to
to be
have you
here. This
back.
will be a fun
Always good to
talk.
have you. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
excellent. So that the poll result was awesome. I got to present a similar topic to this recently, where it was a bunch of people who were experts in it, and I had built this deck. I built this presentation for really all of you based on the poll results, which is I want to start with some 101 aspects of PVAs, Power Virtual Agents, or PVAs, which I'll probably be saying. But we're going to get into some of the interesting technical stuff as well. And yeah, I'm expecting to have quite a bit of fun. You'll also hear me talk about some other pieces, which are that we host PVAs in a day. Michael's going to talk about more of the details on that. This is a free opportunity. We host it routinely, where we host a day-long activity where we take you from the beginning to the end of building PVAs. And a lot of the material here is kind of covered in there, but I'm going to go into more focused detail here on monitoring, compliance, analytics, getting the most out of your PVA. So when you hear me talk about that, it's free to you. There's no gimmicks, no catch. We just want more people using this because we think that PVAs have quite a bunch of opportunity. I will be doing some one-on-one stuff, but generally the idea here is these PVAs help you build these chatbots, these intelligent chatbots for people who really have no coding experience. We'll get into all that. So why that I really want you to be listening to this is that you know, those quotes that I have here, that chatbots, they seem intelligent. They definitely can, because they can be informative, and I'm not totally considering ChatGPT just yet, nor am I considering Copilot. I'll get to that. But really, any chatbot, including GPT, including Copilot, those are only as smart really as their underlying data source, that the information that we've used to train them. So if we're going to use PVAs to build our own bots, we're going to have to think about where's that data coming from, and how are we providing effectively the answers? How are we making that chatbot smart? And another thing I really thought was, like, you know, people talk about AI and they're talking about GPT, they're talking about Copilot, and they think that, like, you know, the real danger is that we think we understand what's happening, and what can we do to actually understand AI? What can it do? What it cannot do? And how can we make our solutions actually work well for the people who we intend to be using these things? And yeah, I could have fun talking about GPT for quite a while, because I'm definitely the camp that says it's an amazing tool, but it really is dumb. It is, and there's a whole long story on that, on why it is. And it sounds like it knows the answer, but it doesn't. And we're going to be seeing GPT pieces come into PVAs via Copilot, and there's some real fascinating opportunities there that I hope Microsoft pursues, and I do fully expect them to pursue that. So I believe the best place to start here, especially with the audience that we have, based on what you told me, is what are Power Virtual Agents? Like, let's make sure we understand what they are, and that's that. PVAs are this idea, this concept of this intelligent chatbot that allows your end users, maybe your employees, your coworkers, or your customers, external people, to be able to, you can rapidly respond to them at scale through a conversational bot that doesn't require code. That anyone on this call, this webinar, I do fully believe can learn this. It's really just filling out some forms here and there, and putting some things in the right order, dragging and dropping components. and making it work. Now, there's definitely a lot of gotchas. There's a lot of training that can be involved. There's a lot of things that you need to know that we're going to go over. So don't worry. And our PVA in a day goes over all those aspects in much greater detail. But you don't need to be a developer building Azure resources on the back end with coding and interacting with these Microsoft models using C# or Python or all this other kind of stuff. That's all done for you. You don't have to worry so much. There's a little bit, but not much on deploying these out, particularly if you're going to be deploying your chatbot directly within Teams, let's say. There's no coding really required. You click a couple buttons and your bot, your PVA bot, gets deployed as an app within Teams. Just really cool pieces that you can do to help your organization build intelligent chatbots that are actually engaging with people in these personal conversations that we're getting used to. Something that is being heavily invested in by Microsoft. So again, as more of the AI aspects, the generative AI aspects become more readily available, those are going to be just, I can see it just shimmed right into PVAs, and I'm sure Microsoft is going to continue to focus on the non-technical end user to be able to build these bots within the organization. Okay, so we're going to eventually make the slide deck available to you. There's a good little, it's like a 2-3 minute, it's an ad from Microsoft. I just took it from them on what PVAs are. I'm going to skip through that. Whoop. I'm just going to skip it in interest of time. You can, I'm going to go over all the material anyhow, but if you want that, you can just get the slide deck. So building PVAs, there's this life cycle to it. And I want to go through the life cycle, but then I also want to talk about like the focus on this particular conversation is more around how to make your bot even better. But you start by building your bot. There's a graphical interface. There's really no coding needed to build a very sophisticated bot. You can extend it with other pieces which could use code and whatnot, but generally for a lot of the bots you'll build, that's not the case. The current traditional way of using bots is by creating topics. You are basically starting to train your bot as to the kind of thing that people might be asking for. You can then create those topics and use natural language to help train the bot to understand how people might be asking for these things, but you don't have to provide like every single response or question or topic that someone may actually type. You know, the bot would be smart enough to interpret what people are doing. You can integrate the bot with backend APIs if you want to. You can extend it with additional skills. You can even hook it up to agents. So if someone said like, I'd like to talk to an agent, you can actually, the bot can actually go and send that user off to an agent system that you might have. You can then publish the bot to different channels via Teams, via websites, via web apps. You can integrate other apps into your bot so that your app talks to your bot for the end user and your app's doing all that work. You can then work on monitoring how your bot is doing, improve it, and basically start over. And so where I want to talk about, or like the places we're going to focus the whole back half of this conversation, is how to monitor the bot. How are we able to build a bot and then watch what's happening and what's available to you to be able to make your bot better? How can you make it actually answer what it is that you're attempting to do? And then from there, you're able to then help build more topics, help build more curated data on what your bot could or should do based on what people are either typing in, the prompts they're giving, the things they're asking for. Sort of like, you know, kind of think like a extremely smart search. People are searching in our traditional internet days. People would be searching, you'd monitor your search logs for what searches are, and you'd start to percolate things up to the top. Well, PVAs have the ability of helping uncover the types of things people are asking for. Therefore, you can then create topics around that so that people don't have to type in the same exact things, such as, you know, what's the Wi-Fi passcode of the day, or how do we get connected to the network? You could provide a topic around Wi-Fi passcode, give the PVA some initial ideas on how someone might trigger that topic, how someone might want to get that response, and then the power of cognitive services, the power of Azure and the backend, all done for you, can help turn that into something that people can then ask in the way that they would ask, and they could trigger that topic. And then you can extend your bot for those more complex scenarios based upon the analytics and the performance that happens there. Now, the piece that's not in here is that in this diagram is about security. It's around governance. It's around understanding who's using the bot, who has access to be using the bot, how are people securely communicating with my bot, What's the data retention policies look like? What kind of certifications does bot have? All that other stuff your organization might care greatly about, considering the type of data this can get into. I do want to also say that some of the things I can't talk too much about really is the Copilot and like GPT integrations with PVAs. A lot of that just isn't fully public yet, and I don't really want to get in trouble with Microsoft. So I think it's clear to see that we should expect that we're going to get some generative AI. We're going to get some back-end pieces, I'm sure, within PVAs that are going to help us build, maintain, extend topics, and help us build our bots. So I think that's a reasonable thing to say just by looking at what Microsoft is doing everywhere else with Copilot. Okay, so what I then want to do is like, let's think through what are some of the bot scenarios that PVAs are really good at. And what comes down to it is that these chatbots, they're designed to be built, PVA bots are designed to be built like for really any business scenario you could come up with, ideally. Now that may not always be practical, but that's the point, is that they can be very extended to provide that conversational interface for your users, your employees, your fellow workers, and customers, people external from your organization, etc. Let's see. So the bots themselves, they can be deployed across different channels. So not like channels and teams, but they could be deployed to websites. They could be deployed into teams. They could be deployed out so that other apps can interact with them, etc. And this is allowing these bots, these PVAs, to then meet your audience where it is that they are, and that you can connect with them in real time in that chat-driven interface, which I just think is super cool. The idea about these bots is that you can then teach them to help answer some of those common questions that people may have. So think like a really smart FAQ or something, but in a conversational way. But then also you could train your bot, you can tell your bot how to allow people to then reach out to human representatives as needed. So you could have a topic, basically you can have a way to talk to an agent, and the bot can actually be connected to your different systems to allow the bot to directly send the user off to a human representative, which I think is super cool. A lot of us are moving into these conversational interfaces, and to be able to have that self-help at, a lot of us are working with global organizations, to be able to have the 2 a.m. Pacific conversation that might be happening in a different part of the world, and people are able to interact and get the data they need, is super cool. Like I'm thinking, and I'm going to talk about some other business scenarios, but the HR bot is just such a huge popular one that I'm a huge fan of. There's just so many opportunities, IT, things like that, great stuff. Okay, but let's think, so like business to customer, some of the things you can do there is help with those external conversations directly with your customer in a safe and secure manner. And you can set up your bot in a way that basically allows it to be open, so you don't need to be authenticated to use the bot. Of course, to edit is of course very different. You can then put those bots into different channels, such as like website. You can actually put it out into social media as well. They can be accessed via mobile devices for that real good seamless customer experience. The idea here is these bots would address some of like the business, the common business requirements you may have, and help aid the customer within the journey with you. Things like, what are your store hours? How do I initiate a shipping return? How do I check the status of my order? And so instead of having to have an FAQ where you might try to do that in a non-conversational way where people have to hunt and peck, you could create a PVA. Again, thinking like no code here, like seriously, this is actually one of those ones where it really is a no code scenario can really enable a lot of those scenarios where your customer can interact with a conversational bot that you've built, and you can answer a lot of those questions they may have. Pretty cool. Now, when I talk about something like Power Apps, I'm always hedging no code because I feel that most Power Apps do need code to really make them work the way you want. PVAs, I believe, is much more no code, where you can build really sophisticated bots that don't require code. That being said, though, some of these more complex scenarios where you want to check like order status or something like that, your bot could do that. You're gonna have to train it those skills, and typically, yes, you would have someone would be coding some backend pieces to allow your bot to go interact with that data in a secure method and then bring it back in a conversational tone. So depends on the complexity of the scenario, what you're trying to do. Okay, and so then business to employee. Now, personally, this is just where I'm at. I admit the reasons why is because I come from the SharePoint intranet world. I come from more the Power Up world, not the Dynamics uh, external Power Pages and stuff. So I'm dealing more with an internal organization. And so in my head, I'm always thinking about how to create the better employee experience. And so I think internally, and so building bots that help your employees answer their questions about your business in real time at any time that they need, yet still having that ability to like be able to be sent off to a human, you know, to be able to send off to an agent is just super cool. And answering common questions within a bot and deploying it to teams is so easy. Just really is. Some of the like common topics that we're seeing would be things like benefits and payroll, return to work protocol, finding information within knowledge libraries, things like that. Bots can be really good. PVA bots can be really good at helping surface that information with not a ton of work. You can focus on the content and almost zero, if not zero, on any of the like the technical deep coding kind of stuff. So there's like 4 primary reasons why PVAs are good. A lot of this content comes out of Microsoft's materials, so I'm presenting it, but what I want to be presenting here on each of these topics, usability, productivity, extendability, scalability, is around the monitoring and the governance side, the compliancy side, the analytics side. So I'll bring each one back to how does it relate to kind of more, a little more advanced topics. Okay, so if we think about usability, all right, so usability from both of the front end of the user of the bot as well as the editor of the bot. So we've talked about PVAs. They're designed to be conversational and be able to really comprehend your customers and employees' requests within their native language. They can just type it conversationally, and it's not too difficult to train a PVA using just you type out things as an editor, as a maker, to be able to then teach your bot how to understand natural language on what it is they're trying to do. And so we talk about the no-code graphical builder. That's that no-code component. It is natural language. You can tie it into existing content and whatnot, and deploy against all these different channels. And okay, so they say it's usable. Well, like, how do you know it's actually usable from both the end user's perspective as well as the maker's perspective? And how do you know if anyone's even using this whole thing? Like, these are important questions, and PVAs have got you covered. So don't worry, again, we're going to get into the analytics, we'll get into the monitoring, we'll see those tools, those graphs in action, and you'll get to see that. But also think about thinking like, who's editing this thing? Who can update this? And do we want lots of people to have access to it? And how are we going to control the governance around the data that's generated, the data that's created, who's editing it? If you have chat transcripts, the governance behind that, because a lot of you work in organizations or within compliance frameworks where that kind of data needs to be locked down. And what can we do about that? And again, obviously I'm setting this up because PVAs have got you covered. All right, so productivity. The idea here is that PVAs they're designed to power everybody, the end users and the makers, to increase their productivity, to be able to have these intelligent chatbots that can answer your question rather than you attempting to hunt and peck and find it or whatnot. So okay, so they're self-learning. Okay, they can be. They improving the performance should be easier, as they say it's easy. It's supposed to help you then know what to build next, and you can then surface these things directly in the flow of work of the Microsoft Teams. Okay, but you know what does improving the performance even mean? How can I prove to you that I've improved performing the performance? Like, how do you know this? What are you going to do about this? And we talk about like, you know, what to build next. Well, how? So, and the monitoring and the analytics, they're going to give us these tools to know what are people doing, how are they using, what's their satisfaction of this, are they getting what they're looking for, what are some topic overlaps that you may have, what are some of the gaps that you may have. In preview right now is the ability to help, is for AI to help determine what are some possible topics that you may want to consider adding into the system. So some really cool stuff to actually make PVAs actually help you with productivity. Okay, extensibility. So they've got pre-built connectors. It's Power Plat integrated, great. You know, it's total. It can be heavy code. Well, It's not so much that PVAs can be heavily coded, it's more that they can have connections to deep code. So people can build some really complex backend components that your PVAs are able to talk to. And this is able to talk directly into Dynamics. Wonderful, extensibility is great. Okay, who though? Who can do this? What kind of authorization are we giving people to actually be able to make these kind of connections? Like, do we want our bot to be talking to some really deep systems within our org that may then surface the wrong information? So governance is going to become really important in how we set up our bot so that it's properly structured and secured. And then finally, scalability. Scalability is kind of, I have less here on this on the governance and on the compliance and analytics, but generally PPAs, they're built as a SaaS, a software as a service offering. They do support some very complex scenarios. And as you build out extra pieces, you could reuse them throughout different bots that can be really interesting. And there's a whole bunch of lifecycle management that you can build into this as well. Some ALM that's basically, I'm going to talk about shortly. It's very similar to the rest of the Power Plat. So lots of great reasons why I would use PVAs, but a lot of the stuff I would be questioning, well, okay, prove it to me, show me, like you show me what's available, because it's always great to say, oh yeah, we can do that, but I really want to make sure I agree with that. Before we get into some of the meat of the compliance and whatnot and monitoring, what I want to do though is think through, I want you to be thinking through some of the scenarios. We've talked about some, but let's get into a few more. In our resources that we'll be handing out after this, we also have some links to some of the Microsoft Learn material if you want to get it to understand more about what PVAs can do and where Microsoft sees those core scenarios. But some of the big ones I see, like, is around like that employee self-help. I just think that there's great opportunities there for your corp comm, your HR departments, those departments to be able to create content, to be able to create these chatbots, really the sophisticated chatbots where IT is not really needed. Content authors, makers can create some very sophisticated bots, and they can get data to understand what to do next. It's kind of the stuff I wanted to see in SharePoint Search 10, 15 years ago. Well, bots have made it even so much easier, because then you can provide natural language responses and see what people are natural language abilities on the topic, just blanked on the word I wanted to use, on the prompts, to be able to then drive some sort of response that makes sense. So employee self-help, super cool. Common questions people may have, this could be that, yeah, all kinds of cool stuff. I'm thinking like also the health information or healthcare information, vaccination or vacation, excuse me, policies, things like that, other benefit assistance. PVAs actually can be very smart. They know who you are. They can, based on authentication. But also you could just be pointing to the right information, like, what's the vacation policy for a California employee? And that's not too difficult to create a topic around that and then to point it to the right material. Whereas in search, if you had that in your intranet, it just might have more fluff to the response that may not be a really good response. And in search, you can't have a threaded discussion, whereas a bot can, and it's pretty easy to build the logic trees to say, excellent, I see you're coming from California. Are you interested in the California healthcare policies? Great, okay, and then you can really get into some really cool stuff. Bots can help with time speech submission because it integrates well with the Power Plat, but also with the connections and whatnot. If you have existing knowledge bases, you can basically point your PVA to that information, and we expect to see even more deep abilities there to just turn the data that you already have into basically automated topics and automated ability to surface that information in a conversational tone. Kind of think like GPT, but not nearly as good. Let's be fair there. GPT is a little different, but I expect that to change, and I really do. It's going to be interesting. Some other scenarios that we saw that people were using PVAs for would be like the COVID-19 during the pandemic, the infection rate and tracking information. Externally, things like store information, opening hours, inventory, things like that. You can do some really cool things. And when I presented this topic at a conference with this kind of general idea, there's a fair amount of people who are building PVAs within the Power Plat world that are public facing, because the bots are very sophisticated and they're just so easy to create. And being able to tie in your information into your bot into live information is just really sophisticated. providing that sales help and the customer support directly within a chat-based interface. You know, so many public-facing websites have this nowadays. It used to be hard to build these. A lot of coding. Basically, all the coding is taken care of now for you, including redirecting people to agents when they ask for help. Like, you can then send them off to an actual person, and PVAs have got you covered. Then last one here I was thinking about was around that conversational-based customer order requests. Like, where's my order, or what's the shipping information, shipping update. PVAs can help with the general flow of that conversation, asking different questions, and then if you need your bot to then tie in to your order tracking system, that of course is custom code, but it's a smaller piece that's needed. And often we're finding our clients have those APIs already built because they already have their own systems that they need. They just need to build that secure connector so that the bot can communicate securely to that backend order API system to then get the data back and then present it as a result. So really cool things that you can do with PVAs. I think they're very exciting. I hope that helps give you a broad overview. Half of you did say that you're pretty new to PVAs, you haven't really used them. So I know you haven't seen the interface yet. We are going to look at that in my demo at the end where I pull it all together. But please trust me, at least give me the benefit of the doubt and say that what I've been saying is true, that it's a graphical interface to be able to build the bot where you are not having to put any code and you can build some pretty sophisticated systems and solutions. Because with that, what I want to do is move into, I'm going to call it the advanced topics. It's kind of like the next step. After you've built your bot, how are you going to make it better, and how are you going to secure it? How are you going to make sure that it fulfills your compliance needs? So we'll start with analytics, insights, and monitoring. So basically, this is about understanding how your users are, the end users are using the bot, and how to make it better. So your home, where you're going to spend a lot of time here is, and by a lot, I mean this could even just be, you know, you dedicate a couple hours every 2 weeks, every month or something. But you're going to be your home when you want to understand how your bot's doing, and that's the analytics included out of the box without any setup by you. You know, you just create the bot, you set up the topics, you publish it. You're going to start getting this data that I'm talking about. So things that we're looking at here, which is like total number of sessions, engagement sessions, the engagement rate, how engaged are the users, what's the resolution that they provide, how often did topics have to get escalated to an agent or something like that, what's the abandonment rate where someone just ended mid-conversation, what's the satisfaction of the rate of the actual interactions. There's also even the transcripts, which is, I put a star on there for a couple of reasons. One is you have to turn it on. Two is that's where you get closer to the compliancy concerns, where you are storing this data. But what's really nice about transcripts, in my demo, I do have it turned on, is that you can then see how someone is interacting with your bot so that you can help make it better, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff here that you can do with this, and there's a huge chart we'll see that provides all this in a dashboard so that you can really dig into the analytics. Now, taking that analytics, which you're going to see, I'm going to click on an analytics page and it's going to show up. So it's pretty simple. What I want to then think about is, you know, how are you going to take these metrics and actually turn it into insights? And I call this kind of the value slide of it, which is how do you actually take this data and turn it into some purpose-driven information that you have. So you have like bot performance and usage to understand, are you actually building something that people are using? So not even that they want, but are they even using it? And so you can just get an overview of all the analytics of all your different bots. By the way, every bot has its own analytics package here. But you can just understand, is it being used? Again, what's the abandonment rate, or what topics are being driven, or what is the bot able to address people's needs just by understanding how the responses, how the topics, or how the prompts are being sent in, and what kind of responses are given back, what topics are triggered the most, what's the status on those, or the satisfaction on those different topics, so you can understand, am I actually building something that is being used? Okay, then though, you can look at customer satisfaction. So drill in to individual topics and see if those topics are actually being are set up right to be resolving people's problems. Is a topic being triggered? Is a response, if you might think of a topic, is a response being triggered by a particular prompt that does or doesn't make sense, and obviously then that probably means the person's either not satisfied or they're starting another chat because they didn't get what they wanted. So maybe there's a gap in the training where you need to be able to help the bot understand a different type of prompt that could occur, so that you can then provide the proper answer, the proper resolution, or the proper decision tree path, the conversational path to help the users get what they want. Again, I'm always thinking here, going back to this no code idea. So it's easy, and it really is pretty easy to create this complex conversation flow based on these topics that are triggered based on these prompts to be able to do it. The metrics are what's going to tell you this. That's going to tell you if this is working. It's going to tell you where you should be focusing your time. Help people prioritize the things that are being asked that are not that are being asked the most, that are not being actually driving some sort of result for you. You can dig into the session data itself. I just told you about the transcripts and whatnot, and so that can really help you understand the conversations that are occurring and turn them back into better responses, which then you loop back around. You can go back to the performance and customer satisfaction to understand, are the changes we're making improving usage, satisfaction, things like that. And then finally, within the metrics is about billing too. A lot of what you get out of PVAs within teams where you're just using topics that are not connected to external sources or anything is effectively included in your license. But if you want this public facing, if you want it using connectors, et cetera, it starts costing you more and more money. And there is billing analytics provided for you to help you understand what's charging you money and why, and also then think through is, okay, well, if that's not where you want to be investing those funds, how could you work with your bot to save costs or whatnot? So Microsoft does give you those insights to help understand what's this costing me and what kind of decisions do you want to make based on that. And before I get into the governance, the last piece here is it's similar to the value slide, but again, it's these things I want you to be thinking about is turning those analytics into action, and what does that mean? So how are you helping address customer satisfaction? That's where you're looking to identify the overall trends of how the bot's being used and what type of things people are asking of the bot, what are they trying to get out of it? And then you really drilling into where's the satisfaction failing? What's not happening the way that the end user is expecting it to, your fellow coworker, your end user out on a public facing site, et cetera. And the idea of the analytics is I'm careful how I'm going to say this, but you don't have to talk to them. The analytics tells you a lot. Now, don't take that to extreme, because I think one of the most important things any of us do that are creating anything that other people are using is we do talk to them. But the analytics get you a lot of the way there. You don't need to talk to every customer to understand how the bot's using, how the bot is doing. You can look at the analytics and it tells you a lot of the data about their interaction, what they're asking for, what kind of response did they get, what was their satisfaction rating, et cetera. Another big one is about that the topic usage. So you can drill into the topics that you've created and how they're being triggered. As well as did your path, the way that you told the bot to respond, taught it to respond, did that actually resolve the end user, the issue that the end user actually had in the first place? And analytics gives us that information. But then lastly, here we get the session information, where you can drill into a session, a given conversation with an individual user, and see what did they type, what was the prompt that they gave, what was the topic that was triggered, how did they interact with it from there, what was the ratings that they gave. So you can really drill into individuals. This is why I say, like, you don't have to talk to your user. You should. Please don't take that to the extreme. But you can get a lot of this data in an aggregate form to not have to, so you can have a more structured conversation if you then reach out to your end users on how to make all this better. So that's analytics and monitoring. It's a couple simple dashboards, but what I really want you to be thinking is how can you take all of that data and actually turn it into action to be able to make a better bot. Now, governance compliance, I'm going to go a little quicker here. I have kind of one slide on the governance security things that I want you to think about, and then I have some supporting material to help get you sort of seeing some of this and thinking of it. But the governance compliance, the governance is around controlling access to your bot and maintaining the control of the bot. And so some of the things that bots give you, the PVAs and bots give you, is the ability to control and secure who's actually using the bot, both on the end user side as well as the maker side, the editor side, maker being from the Power Platform. Okay, so you're able to share. So when you create a bot, you can then share it to people. Now this is not the same as enabling people to use your bot. It's sharing it to be able to edit the bot or to work with the data of the bot in the backend side. And something to think about though is that all the shared users, so whoever you share a bot with, they need to have an environment maker role. And so that's something that happens really in on the security side. It's just one of the roles that you have to have. Now, with that though, when you share it with somebody, there's a different types of access people then can have to the bot. So there's owners. So the owners are the people that have full control. There's authors. Basically, authors can do everything except add extra users to the system. Contributors are able to not administer the bot per se. They're designed to be able to, or the idea there is that they can help create topics and help create the conversation better, but they're not able to manipulate all the settings of the bot. And then there's the transcript viewers, which is really much more about just being able to understand what people are doing with the bot, but it's kind of like think of a reader role. They're not able to edit the bot itself though. So those are the 4 primary roles that currently exist, but anybody who has access does have to have the environment maker role to be able to do any of this stuff. All right, so that's sort of the backend side. Now on the front end side, this is about deploying your bot so that it can be the people that can have conversations with it. There's 3 primary areas three primary channels, but that's kind of everything digital, at least. Those are the web, think like websites, social media, things like that. So you can deploy this so anybody can use it. You can deploy this within Teams, and then you can also deploy this in a channel to make it available to apps. So you could build apps that have conversations with your bot. And that's kind of cool. It's pretty interesting. So how this works is there's 3 real levels of authorization to be able to interact with your bot, not edit it, interact with it. So open, available to anybody, anonymous. Only for Teams. So you can say this is a bot only available in Teams. It's not open for everybody. It's not even available to external apps. It's only available in Teams. Or you can set it up to have authentication, which is AAD or OAuth 2. So this would be really to have an external app or something else that talks to your bot and authenticates via OAuth or AAD. Now there is another way that you can do this, which is this web channel or app security. So this is when you want to build an app that's able to talk to your bot. You don't want to use AAD. You just want to have a direct line security. So this would be a service that's effectively talking to your bot, and it's effectively like shared credentials. It's people that are using it are interfacing with something else. That's something else that you've built. You want it to be able to talk to your bot, but you don't want to have to use an AAD account or something like that, or an actual like an identity. Instead, what you can end up using is just a secret and a token. Beyond the scope of this call to like go into that kind of deep code, but there are all these ways that you can secure how people are able to have conversations with your bot and whatnot. Okay, so another 2 last things here is data retention. So if you want to have your chat logs, the data retention on your chat logs, because that's really where the data retention would exist, that's basically following your Dataverse retention policies. That's a huge conversation in and of itself, but that's sort of like the quick answer there. And for application lifecycle management, ALM, that's your as you build the bot and as you change it. Basically, and this is a whole conversation, there is source control available to be able to control the bot itself and who is editing and changing it. And basically, it follows the Power Platform. Long conversations there, so I'm going to leave it at that for the last 2 because they give you a solid answer, but there's of course a lot of subtlety of what's the retention policies actually look like, and then exactly what ALM is. But it's just too deep for this conversation, so I have to move on. Microsoft provides quite a lot of information there for you though, so there's good stuff. Okay, I want to give you some quick, some quick animations. This is from Microsoft. So this would be like preventing chatbots to use channels that where you don't want them to be able to use or to work in an unauthenticated way. So you're seeing here when you're working with a bot in security, you can say how you want it to be available. Do you want it to be open to everybody? And you can see it's simple. It's basically you just set up channels that you don't want to be able to allow people to add this bot to, as well as you can go into security and then set up the authentication is how you authenticate it. Something else I wanted to quickly show that's kind of cool, there's a lot of governance here, is actually controlling who can install PVA Teams app. So this would be not the bot itself, but who actually can install PVAs, the PVA app, to be a maker, to be able to build your bots. And that's pretty easy to do. There's something that admins or 10 admins are able to go do, or the Teams admins can go do, is to go and say that Power Virtual Agents app itself requires approval in order to be able to add it. So not everybody can add it. Pretty cool, simple stuff. Okay, lastly, before I get into I want to show you the Center of Excellence thing, super cool, and then we'll do our demo. Around compliancy, PVAs are a core online service for Microsoft. Therefore, it basically follows a whole bunch of compliancy. I've given you the links. I'm going to move on because there's just so much here. But basically, PVAs are, Microsoft's well aware that PVAs need to be able to follow the same compliancy that really the rest of Power Plat follows. Perfect. I do want to talk quickly about GDPR for our primarily European customers or European attendees and whatnot. Generally, PVAs, they follow the Dynamics 365 application policies. You can do things such as discover, access, rectify, restrict, delete, and export as you would expect. Your DSRs, your data subject requests, are effectively what you see in the rest of Power Plat. You can PVAs can help address your DSR request for that personal data, as well as requests for that pseudomodernized data as well. So Microsoft is thinking about this as well. They've got you reasonably covered. I've given you some links to both of these so that you can dig in more, because compliance is something that is also a huge topic. It can be, but can be very specific to each of you. So kind of need to just move on. Lastly, this is a big one. I'm just going to introduce it. Microsoft has created the Center of Excellence, the COE starter kit for the Power Plat itself. And they made a major update recently where the Center of Excellence starter kit includes even more around governing, monitoring, managing your PVAs. This is super cool stuff. You can get it at aka.ms/that COE starter kit, because the capitalization matters here. And although this is effectively a Power app, here, I'll show you a screenshot of it. It's designed to be a starter for you. When I presented this before and talked to people, people love this. They've never deployed it actually to production out of the box. They've always tweaked it to match them. So you can get some really cool insights into how your bots are doing, more than the analytics tool, via this Power app that's basically built for you, and then you can go and turn it into your own thing. It's just super cool. One of the things like you can do is just, if this is within the Center of Excellence, is tracking the usage of time over time with your chatbots. And the analytics directly within PVAs don't really do this. The data is there, but they just don't present it. So that's what the COE highly recommend that you look at. It's pretty impressive. There's a lot of tools to it. That's actually a full hour demo in itself to get it all set up and stuff. Like, it's not something you're just going to do in 5 minutes. It does take time to put it all together and to get it running, and then you'll want to tweak it for the next month. Total cool stuff. But it's definitely there. Do learn, do check it out. So what I want to do in the few minutes that I have left here, let me go ahead and see if I can pull all this up quickly and easily. I want to show you this stuff. Now let me go ahead, and I need to show my screen. Where is my, nope. Okay, I'm gonna do it this way. And make sure you're all seeing what I want you to see. Perfect. So, you know, I'm in Teams here, and if I go into PVAs, would be your Power Virtual Agent bot itself, or the app itself. I've already installed it, but that's one of that thing I showed you. You can request for approval. But if you click on Power Automate, or not Power Automate, I wanted to go to PVA. There we go. Power Virtual Agents. You'll get to see the different chatbots that have been shared with you, that you created, that have been added into different teams or channels that you have, etc. I'm in my chatbots. I've created this simple combot. I can actually quickly show you the combot, and this is what I called it because it's a communications bot. I was able to add it. You can actually see here, I was able to add it as a Teams app, and no code on that, by the way. I'll see if I can quickly show you how I was able to add that. But I can have this bot, and you can see I had this conversation here, and I was getting different responses, and I was testing out, you know, if I didn't have a topic created, what it would look like. But these responses I all generated. So it's just a bot that was created. So within the bot itself, there's so much here. Our PVA in a day, you're going to learn all about this. But the general idea is you create topics I told you about. You've got trigger phrases for topics. You start to teach it what it can do. And when you publish it, Cognitive Services within Azure is able to turn this into a much broader model. So people don't have to type in exactly what you've typed in. You're just giving it an idea of what people might be asking for and how they might ask for it. And then within any given topic, you provide a decision tree here. Let's look at the tree here. You can see based on if that topic is generated, if any of you Power Automate, it's sort of the same idea. You're able to provide responses and questions and responses and questions so that people can have this conversation. All no code. This is all drag and drop, just adding in new connectors. What I want to do is I want to show you the analytics, because that's what this is basically about. In the analytics, you can start to see the sessions, the engagement rate, resolution rate, abandonment rate. Now, this is, I just created this demo. I recreated it a couple days ago. You can start to see the data that started coming in. We can start to see the topics that are getting triggered. Now, I had to turn on the overlapping topics and the suggestions. This takes a little more time than just 2 days and one person chatting with it. But you'd start to see where topics are talked about. We have customer satisfaction, so that you can see what people's satisfaction rate is for just general topics that you have. You can kind of see these different trends and the trends over time. This is how you're going to be proving to your bosses and your project sponsors, is this worth it? Is this actually working? Now, I wanted to show you on the sessions, when you turn on the ability to store transcripts, you can then go ahead and you can see the transcripts itself, and it shows up as a CSV, and you can start to see what it is that people are doing, like what was their initial question, the topic that was triggered. You can actually get the whole transcript itself, all within our favorite app, Excel. What app wasn't, just ended up in Excel anyhow, of course. And then there's billing as well. So we talked about how there's information on billing. You can see, again, this is a new tenant, but we can start to understand what the billing rate looked like. The other thing I want to show you is over on settings. There's a whole bunch of settings you can do, but one of them here is that security we saw, where we're able to talk about where this is shared with, who's it shared with. These are the people who can edit it. There's authentication, so we can say who can actually interact with it. So open would be a bot that you can then publish to a website only for Teams. This is I talked about manual, where you can set up the AAD or OAuth way beyond this conversation. I talked about client secrets and tokens. So this is for that web channel security. If you wanted to have basically an app that talks to your bot, you're able to, instead of having to authenticate via an identity, like I think username and password, you can have it authenticate via more of a shared credential via the secret and tokens and whatnot. There's just some really cool things. So I didn't talk about, like, I've kept mentioning agent transfers. There's ways that you can set this up to be able to allow the bot to transfer this to a live user way beyond what we're talking about here. There's just so much stuff that you can do, and all of this is it's all out of the box. When I created my bot, I didn't have to do anything to set up the analytics. I didn't have to do anything to well, the analytics was just set up in and of itself. What I had to do when I went ahead, this is the big one, is when you have your topics, as you start adding and editing topics, you start building out what your bot is able to do, and you build skills and whatnot. Eventually what you need to do is, whoops, let me try that again. Did not mean to do that. Let's go back here. You need to publish your bot. Now what happens when you publish it is, basically at this point, we're sending our data, all of our core data, and we're sending it up into Azure. All this is done for you. You don't have to do any connections. And we're teaching a cognitive model, kind of think GPT-like kind of thing. And when you publish it, I've already published this. I just published an update recently. You can then, open it in Teams. You can make it available to others. If you open this in Teams, the idea here is that this is where you add the bot to Teams. This is how easy this was when I did it. So instead of open, this was said add, and I added it into the Teams catalog. Now, you have to have the authority to be able to do this, of course. And not every user can add something into the Teams app catalog, but it really is that simple to add an app, your bot, into Teams so that I could go ahead and put it in the left nav. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, I'm really running out of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and send this back to Michael here shortly. I hope this gave you a really good idea and opportunity to see what a PVA can do, but then also to think through how are you going to make it better. Think like through the next advanced topics, and the analytics is there for you. You can monitor what's going on and make it better. If you build a bot and let it go and like set it and forget it, you will fail. Bots will not answer the questions you want answered. Your end users are going to be like, nope, not going to need it. So the monitoring is so much better than anything we've seen really in like search or other ways people use to surface this content. You can really make your bots sophisticated with really minimal work. And then on the governance compliance side, you can secure this thing. You can use it in channels in ways you might not have thought possible. And you had developers building very complex coded bots. You can do it so much easier now. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap up my side. Michael, I know we got some resources. I know you want to talk about our workshop because it's a free thing we want you all to know about.
Yeah.
Let's take it away.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Eric. I'm so happy that we have Power Virtual Agents as part of our Rolodex of sessions in the Pixel webinar series now. We've needed to do it for a while. I'm glad we finally have it. Yeah, so we got some resources for you guys. In the handouts tab, there is a resource I just dropped in, something for you guys to take away, but it's talking all about the sessions that we do for Power Virtual Agents. If you really like today's session, but you think I could use like a full day to just deep dive into Power Virtual Agents, we have the session for you. We do what we call app in a days, and we do them on several different sessions, but we do a specific one on Power Virtual Agents where we dive into a little deeper. We actually get into like hands-on, like helping you create your Power Virtual Agent, talking a little bit more about the specifics of certain things you can adjust and do and create to make them really work with the way you need them to work, right? Helping build them smarter, the easy actions you can take to make them integrate with things. Basically, just a deeper dive. We only have an hour here when we do the webinar, so we covered so much information today. But these in a day sessions give you the opportunity to really immerse yourself in a
It's
topic.
hands-on,
So we do.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and
This is not a
it's
day
really
ahead.
more
This is
hands-on.
it's
Yeah.
free, and we're teaching you how to do it. That we want you all using these, and we teach you how to do it. We're not teaching you how to buy our services. We're teaching you actually how to go and do the work yourself. So it's super cool and it's free.
Exactly. Yeah, Eric said it. Yeah, Eric beat me to my next couple points, and I'm glad he said it. Yeah, it's free. It's a chance for you to get in there and learn about it. It has very little to do with CreoSpark and more to do with the opportunity to, again, just get in there and get your hands dirty and learn how to use those Power Virtual Agents. So in that handout, talks about all about it, talks about what our next couple sessions are. We've got one coming up on August 2nd, as you can see on the slide. You'll see me there. My stupid bald head will be there kicking things off and being around during that. We'll have some of our amazing Power Platform team leading the charge and leading that session there and all that fun stuff. So we hope to see you there. It is again one of the many free in a day sessions that we do. Check it out. Check out all the ones we do. We do a lot of the Power Platform ones. We just did Power BI dashboard in a day yesterday. That was a lot of fun. The new piece of the Power Platform, Power Pages, which is coming out. It's just coming out soon, or it's already out. I'm forgetting now. We're going to be doing a session on those coming up. We cover everything. Speaking of the things that we do, we also like to do a little giveaway. It goes along with the survey that I mentioned before. If you follow the link, use that QR code, however you like to do it. Follow that link to the survey. Fill out that survey. Let us know what you thought of the session today. Something missing? You want to see more of something? Do you feel like we should offer your punch and pie? Like, tell us what you think. Tell us how you thought the session went today. And did that interest you in for a chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card? We do the drawings quarterly, so I believe our next session is when we're doing the next drawing. So get your name in there, do that survey, enter your chance to win that gift card. I want to be able to call your name and say you're a winner next month. So definitely get that in there. We would love to hear your feedback on that. And yeah, I think that's it for that. This is where we've got 1 minute left. If anybody's got their questions about Power Virtual Agents or anything, just drop them in that questions tab. We'll be keeping an eye on that to make sure we get those questions answered and all that fun stuff. And there it is. It's 12. I didn't see any questions come in. So all right, everybody. Oh,
Yeah, thank
necessary
you.
licenses. Oh, thank you. Great question, Eric. What are the
Yeah.
necessary licenses you need?
As I said, anyone who is a editor needs that maker role, and really you're going to need that maker license, the PowerPlot license for that. So, and then the billing of it is, I don't get into billing it. The cost is, they have a long spreadsheet on that. Microsoft has their whole way of how they charge. So, and in our resources, we go through a lot more of the licensing and the billing for you. So you'll get that detail that you want there.
Absolutely. All right, yeah, great question about that. All right, guys, with that, thank you so much. We're at our time. Really appreciate you all being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. We are working on the details for our next session, so keep an eye out on that for what we're doing next month. It's going to be a great topic. Thank you so much for everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday, a great rest of your July. Stay cool. I know it's been real hot this summer, and we will see you all down the road. Take it easy,
Thank you
everybody.
all. Bye all.